My father's mother was the quintessential grandma. She was kind and funny and baked great Welsh cakes and always made all of her grandchildren feel like they were her favorite. Ivy was 92 and has seen a lot in her lifetime. Four children, nine grandchildren, nine great grandchildren. She had been living with my aunt for the last 6 or 7 years once it was clear she could no longer live on her own after a few falls and a few surgeries. Grandma was down for the ride, though. She had lived on her own 15 years since Grandpa passed away, and the novelty of it was wearing off. She celebrated selling her house of 50 years and moving across the country into my aunt's house in an affluent neighborhood outside of Las Vegas. It was her next chapter. What she had hoped would be her last chapter, but life had other plans. She started to get confused and hard of hearing and started to have accidents. It was decided she had become too difficult to manage at home and she was forced into another chapter. A nice facility with a private room and a view of the desert, plenty of activities to keep her busy, and all the cookies she could eat. And then COVID hit. For the last 10 months, she's been in lockdown. No in-person visitors, no leaving her room, no group activities. This new chapter of social distance and isolation was for her safety, to make sure COVID didn't get to her. My husband and I got married 2 years ago in Las Vegas for a lot of reasons. One of them being the opportunity to invite her, to see her. And she came, the oldest person in the room. She held my hand. She looked into my eyes. Her speech had already started to decline, but she mumbled something to me and smiled big and wide. And though we had never discussed my sexuality before, I knew she accepted me and my marriage. We had Funko Pops on the tables as little favors. And she asked the other people at her table if she could have theirs because she loved them so much. She looked at their big, cute black eyes and she smiled at them and they made her happy. And I was happy. Happiest day of my life. I have no idea what happened to them once my aunt took her home that day, but I've pretended at least one or two of them are sitting on her shelf in her room right now. And she could see them smiling at her and know I was thinking about her. I grew up in Kentucky and she lived in Michigan. So I would only see her once or twice a year, either when my dad would fly in and take us up there for a week or a weekend, or when my mom would just throw us in the car and we'd go up for a night or two. Even though they were divorced, grandma always made my mom feel like family. My sister and I would share a room upstairs on the third floor, and I remember it feeling so cozy and safe, quiet. I loved sleeping there. She always kept her house really cool, and at night you'd have to burrow under the covers to stay warm. I pooped my pants one trip. I don't even remember how old I was, but I was old enough that it was embarrassing. Like 10 or 11. We had driven the 5 hour drive up, and I had to poop the whole time, but didn't want to do it at a rest area, so I just held it. I made it into the house, into the bathroom even, but before I could get my underwear down, it just ripped. For some reason, I was just terrified of anyone finding out. I emptied the poop into the toilet and scrunched up the underwear, wrapped them in tissues, and carried them upstairs in my pillow with the Batman pillowcase. Why I didn't just throw them away, I have no idea. But instead, I buried them at the bottom of a dresser full of clothes in the room we slept in, and left them there and pretended it had never happened. 6 months later, when we're back to visit, we hug upon arrival, and my grandma bends down and whispers in my ear, "There's something under your pillow." I ran upstairs thinking a toy or some candy, but instead, I raised up the pillow to find my underwear, cleaned and neatly folded. She never said another word about it or made me feel any kind of way about it. And she taught me more about life in that moment than she'll ever realize. The illusion of safety came to an end when my grandma tested positive for COVID on January 7th and lost her battle on February 1st, alone, with no family around her. A nurse she barely knew had become her family, and in the final moments, she held my grandma's hand in her triple gloved hands and reminded her that she was loved by so many. The nurse had done this before, numerous times for numerous people. My family's modern day hero who will become the stuff of legends when this history is told hundreds of years from now. Goodbye, Grandma. I love you.